Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm pleased to introduce Kiora Pharmaceuticals, but before we get into the presentation, let me just make sure everyone is aware that you can ask questions. Feel free to submit those even as we're going through the presentation, and time permitting, we can go over as many of those as possible at the end. So without further ado, I will hand the floor to Melissa. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Pat. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Melissa Tosca, the Executive Vice President of Finance for Kiora Pharmaceuticals, and I'm really looking forward to sharing more about our company with you today. One housekeeping item before we get started. As a public company, we're required to include mention of the forward-looking nature of certain statements in this presentation. Simply put, this just means that everything's based on our current expectations, which of course may be subject to change. So let's get started. At Kiora, we're developing treatments for orphan retinal diseases where there's significant unmet need. We seek to improve sight in patients with severe vision loss due to inherited or age-related diseases. The despair that's experienced by someone who's lost or is losing their vision is something I think we can all relate to. For me personally, growing up, I saw my grandfather lose his eyesight in his 60s, and he lived the last 20 years of his life legally blind. It was, of course, devastating for him and for my family also to just witness him withdraw from a very active lifestyle where he loved to go camping, he loved to fish, he loved to tinker and work on his cars, to really one where he was very confined to his home. So to be at a company where we're striving to slow, to stop, or restore vision loss is extremely rewarding and inspiring for me. Our pipeline is comprised of two assets that have application across several orphan retinal disease indications. Starting with our 301 asset, we're using a small molecule photoswitch to confer light sensitivity. We've started initially with a program in retinitis pigmentosa, and we're going to be expanding into other diseases as well. We also have another asset, 104, which is a non-steroidal small molecule that's focused on helping patients with retinal inflammation. So let's talk about 301, our small molecule photoswitch. Within the retina, we have rods and cones, which are the photoreceptor cells that take light and convert it into electrical energy. That energy is transmitted to cells known as RGCs, which then relay the signal to the brain. In many retinal diseases, the rods and cones die, and this is really what leads to blindness. However, since RGCs can remain alive, we're able to target these cells and essentially turn them into light-sensitive cells. Our small molecule enters RGCs and alters ion flow through a channel that causes the cell to be activated when light is present or deactivated when light goes away. Retinitis pigmentosa, as mentioned, is our first disease indication, and sadly, there are no available treatments currently. Patients generally begin losing their vision in their upper teens to 20s and become legally blind by their mid-50s. RP is a group of diseases that can be caused by over 150 known mutations in over 50 genes. But given our small molecule is mutation agnostic, we believe we can reach all of these patients. With over 100,000 patients in the US that cost our healthcare system approximately $4 billion annually, this provides a significant market opportunity. We've completed a phase 1b ABACUS study and released top-line data last November at the American Academy of Ophthalmology conference. This was a first-in-human study where we looked at different drug amounts among patients with different levels of disease progression. Safety, of course, was paramount importance, and we had a host of efficacy endpoints. Specifically, we had two cohorts. The first cohort was comprised of patients who had no light perception or bare light perception, and the second cohort was comprised of patients who could see hand motions or count fingers. But across both cohorts, all of the patients were considered off chart, meaning they couldn't read even the first letter of an eye chart. The patient testimonials from the phase 1b study were tremendous. we were able to hear direct feedback from all 6 patients enrolled in the study, which indicated positive ways that they were impacted as a result of the study. And I know there's a lot of text on this slide. I don't expect you to read it all in this moment, but I would encourage you to go to our website and watch the patient videos, which are incredibly inspiring. And it's great always to hear feedback firsthand. In terms of takeaways from the study, most importantly, there were no safety or tolerability concerns noted. We saw improvement in visual acuity, visual field, and functional vision. And additionally, through functional MRI, we saw increased visual cortex activity. And the visual cortex is the region of the brain that's responsible for vision. So as you can imagine, on the heels of this data, there was a lot of excitement, which led to us putting together a partnership with a French company, LabThea, through their affiliate, Thea Open Innovation. The partnership grants Thea the global, excluding Asia, commercial rights to our KIO 301 asset for all inherited retinal diseases. The upfront payment was $16 million, and the total deal value is north of $300 million, plus royalties on net sales up to the low 20%. Additionally, and very importantly, all phase 2 development costs will now be reimbursed by Thea. And once we complete phase 2, we'll pass the baton to their team, and they'll conduct the phase 3 and fund all of that activity. So we've kicked off our phase 2 study preparations. This will be a larger study of approximately 36 patients comprised of 3 cohorts, including a control group. The patients will receive bilateral intravitreal injections for 3 consecutive doses every 6 weeks. There will also be an open label extension whereby the control group can also receive the drug if they choose. So let's move on to 104, our other intravitreal asset, which is a novel non-steroidal small molecule to help patients with retinal inflammation. We've been able to leverage existing knowledge from other therapeutic areas within rheumatology and apply it to eye-related diseases that could also benefit from that knowledge. We know that swelling is caused by inflammation and can be a downstream effect of many eye-related diseases or issues, including diabetic macular edema, retinal vein occlusion, post-cataract surgery, as well as posterior non-infectious uveitis, which is the first disease indication we're focused on. Posterior non-infectious uveitis is a group of disorders that's characterized by inflammation in the back of the eye. The inflammation is often chronic and it can flare up at any time, leading to visual impairment and ultimately vision loss. Sadly, currently the clinical symptoms are being treated with steroids, which, as we know, there's just really negative effects, and they can lead to adverse events, including cataracts and even glaucoma. So with approximately 400,000 patients in the US alone that suffer with this condition, we feel there's another significant market opportunity for the company in this area. We have previously run a phase 1/2 study in posterior non-infectious uveitis. This was another first-in-human study and was a single intravitreal injection where our primary objective was to ensure safety and tolerability while seeing improvement in inflammation. In terms of results, we saw no serious adverse events. There was excellent tolerability at all doses, and we saw that this drug remained within the ocular area it was injected and did not pass systemically through the blood to peripheral areas, which is really important. The results also showed meaningful improvement in visual acuity, which is highlighted in the chart on the left, as well as improvement in swelling within the retina after a single intravitreal dose. This is highlighted in the images on the right. As next steps, we're planning to begin a phase 2 trial before year end. We're going to be looking at a few different disease states that all have macular edema, which is swelling in the central part of the retina, and then expanding that into a match-controlled study where we'll be assessing multiple doses of the drug in a way to evaluate its potential ability to help patients reduce swelling and improve their visual acuity. Oh, my slides, or oops, skipped one, sorry, going back. Our leadership team here, you can see, is comprised of experienced biotech executives. We're bringing ophthalmology expertise as well as drug development experience, and have worked across all asset life cycles from development to commercialization. In terms of upcoming milestones, over the next 18 months, we have several that will be very significant. We believe that these will provide multiple value inflection points for the company and investors throughout this period from both 301 as well as 104. To wrap up, we believe our company is still greatly undervalued, and we expect to see this change as we realize our upcoming milestones. With the execution of the strategic partnership with Théa for 301, our cash burn has been significantly reduced, given all phase 2 clinical development costs will now be reimbursed. Additionally, phase 3 being funded by Théa and providing us with additional achievable milestone payments is going to bring in additional non-dilutive capital to the company. In terms of our pipeline, we're exploring Asia licensing opportunities for 301, and we're continuing to develop 104, our best-in-class treatment for uveitis and other indications. Lastly, and very importantly, we have really bolstered our balance sheet. We have a strong cash position now of approximately $30 million, which provides us with over 2 years of runway, and that's before we're factoring in additional development milestone payments that could also be coming. With that, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate your time today and allowing me to share why I'm so excited to be a part of Kiora, and I look forward to addressing any questions from anybody in the audience, and I will pass it back to the Noble team.
Thanks, Melissa. Our first question is, could you expand on the longer-term value of the Théa partnership for KIO 301 in retinitis pigmentosa?
Absolutely. Most importantly, if we achieve regulatory approval, we will realize tiered royalties of up to the low 20 percentile. So that's going to be very significant in terms of long-term value to the company and to investors. The other major benefit is really Théa. Having them as a partner with their commercial expertise, and also having their team take responsibility for the sales and the marketing of any approved indications is really key. We're also seeing opportunity to garner approval across 3 different indications. So beyond retinitis pigmentosa, we're looking to expand into choroideremia as well as Stargardt's disease through this partnership. And I guess lastly, but most importantly, is through the process, we believe we can achieve those significant regulatory and commercial milestone payments and bring in additional capital of approximately $275 million.
And then can you detail, and I think you mentioned it, but can you detail what the R&D reimbursement covers exactly?
Sure. So we receive reimbursement for all external R&D, which effectively means all clinical trial and regulatory related expenses. We've been fine-tuning our process with Théa on how we'll submit the details for reimbursement, but the intention is that we'll be reimbursed quarterly, and that was based on a mutual agreement between us and Théa on the scope and the specifics of the clinical trial designs. So yeah, broadly, this means we retain long-term upside on the commercial front, and we've de-risked, in terms of reimbursements on the R&D expenses.
Great. And then do you anticipate that these funds will free up capital for other endeavors, such as investment in the KIO 104?
This is correct. We do. We viewed this as a valuable asset, but have really just not had the financial resources to invest in it in the way we would have liked. As mentioned earlier in my talk, there's been some proof of concept clinical and preclinical work that's been very promising and showing the potential for targeting retinal inflammation. And those activities were largely undertaken prior to myself and our current management team having joined. So our next step is to rigorously repeat and validate that work so that we can optimize the next clinical trial. This, will involve additional preclinical work as well as, we're doing that. We'll also be in parallel designing and implementation of a robust phase 2 clinical trial. So based on the financial resources we now have through the TAEA partnership, we're able to take the time to really consider the best path forward in terms of scope, size, and region for KIO 104.
Gotcha. And then with KIO 104, I think this question has to do with that, but can you explain the effect of autoimmune diseases on the eye?
Sure, absolutely. The medical community is increasingly recognizing that ocular disease in many instances is the result of an underlying autoimmune disease. So, as this becomes more widely recognized, we believe it will change how many eye diseases are treated.
And how are autoimmune disease currently being treated?
Yeah, so we touched on this briefly earlier, mostly through steroids or systemic autoimmune disease drugs, which, there's downsides to both. Steroids don't really address the underlying issue and they carry safety issues long term. And system drugs don't get enough drug into the area where it's needed to act without risk of side effects that come with the systemic delivery and doses that are applied. So again, this really underscores the need for a potent anti-inflammatory drug like 104 to be delivered locally to the eye.
Great. And then can you share any other benefits of an anti-inflammatory drug in ocular inflammation?
Yeah, I mean, the benefit of a drug like 104 would be that it acts locally to address the underlying cause. Additionally, the impact of autoimmune diseases in the eye go beyond rare indications like uveitis. So a drug like 104 could potentially address diseases that affect an even greater number of patients like DME and others.
Great. And then what milestones should investors be on the lookout for over the next 12 to 18 months?
Um, so we've got some excitement coming up with just getting started on our phase 2 trial. And so that's probably the biggest one that everybody should be on the horizon for. Um, we're super excited to get started on that front and look forward to sharing more as we get going.
Great. Well, I think we were able to make it through all of the questions we've received. So I just want to thank everybody for attending today. And Melissa, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.